and the next man, the next governor of the state of Connecticut, and that's Dan Malloy.
Nancy Wyman is one of these extraordinary public servants who has committed herself over a number of years to making sure the right things get done, whether it was in her own community, as a parent and an activist, or in the legislature, or for the last 16 years as a comptroller. She has sounded the alarms when they needed to be sounded. She has called for fiscal discipline when it needed to be responded to. She has argued the case, as you briefly heard, about health care, and she is absolutely prepared to be an extraordinary partner in helping to turn the state of Connecticut around. So thank you, Nancy, for joining the ticket and being such an extraordinary leader, which you are. Gary, thank you very much for the introduction of both Nancy and myself. It was quite kind, and I think to an appropriate extent captures what we're trying to do here in the state of Connecticut. So let me explain this very clearly and very simply. The vast majority of the people in this room are under the age of 24. You were not alive when we last elected a Democratic governor of the state of Connecticut. That, in one of the most democratic states in the nation, we have failed to elect a Democrat. And if you look at the history of the state of Connecticut during that period of time, during the last 20 years, if we had had a Democratic governor for any 4-year period, we would be a stronger, better state. We would have resolved or taken on some of the problems which plague us to this very day. Being more reliant on property taxes to pay for local government than any other state in the nation. Being more reliant to pay for education, pre-K through 12, than any other state in the nation. Having electric rates that are 76% greater than the national average. If you want to know why we've lost more industrial jobs, manufacturing jobs than any other state in New England or the Mid-Atlantic, it's because we're paying a higher electric cost. We failed to benchmark our tax system. We failed to benchmark our regulatory system. We failed to do any form of real self-examination. We refused to adopt generally accepted accounting principles to report our yearly results as a state. We exempt state government even as we require local governments to report under that. We have failed to tackle the serious issues of health care accessibility, or controlling costs of education, or making sure that our state sees itself as a partner with the true job creators in our country, the entrepreneurs. We need to change direction. This is a race about changing that direction. You know, it was commented on that I have some level of experience. You know, I began as a prosecutor right out of law school. When I graduated from Boston College Law School, I went down to Brooklyn, New York, and I spent about 4 years there, tried 23 felony cases, had convictions in 22 of those cases, garnered that kind of experience, went back home to Stanford, began to practice law, but immediately got involved in local government. I was a member of a Board of Finance for 11 years. I served on a Board of Education for a year, and about 15 years ago became mayor of the city of Stanford and set about recreating that city in a different model. We, like every other major city in New England, were losing our industrial base. We had to do something differently. We set a course, and then we sailed that course, and we brought about the kinds of results of repositioning an old industrial city in a new economic model. Stanford, if you measure trades, just trading, Stanford is one of the financial capitals of the world. That was not true 15 years ago. Now, lots of people will say, geez, you know, he's raising all these issues. How can Connecticut possibly make progress? We can. That's what the Democratic process is about. That's what the Democratic Party stands for, making long-term investment. We should be embarrassed that we are having handed off to us infrastructure in worse shape than it was 20 years ago. I give you my word, I shall not do that to the next generation. We should be embarrassed that we've seen a quality gap or a success gap exist in our state along education lines. If you measure it by race, if you measure it by home ownership, if you measure it by wealth, we are leaving far too many of our young people behind. The idea that some of our urban school systems do not graduate upwards of 60% of their population in the traditional 4-year period of time makes no sense. But when you consider that Connecticut is aging more rapidly than just about any other state, and that our workforce is aging more rapidly than any other state in the nation, information. The idea that we would leave that many people unprepared to work in our state makes no sense at all. So this is my quick message to you. You know, listen, you've decided that politics plays some role in your young lives. I hope you make it a career or become committed on a long-term basis. I hope that you encourage other people to do the same. I hope that you drive people to the polls and make sure you're registered, make sure your classmates are registered. I hope that you're going to be involved in doing this, in making democracy work for New Haven, in making democracy work for Connecticut, and understanding that we can accomplish with great leadership coming out of Washington. And by the way, I stand with Barack Obama and his agenda and that which he has accomplished. If you understand that we can do this, that we have the power, then you should certainly be involved in this campaign, because we are going to take our state back. And when we do, we are going to reposition it to be far more successful than any Republican governor has allowed it to be for the last 20 years. We are going to tackle the serious issues. We are going to put our fiscal house in order. We are going to make long-term investments. We are going to be a better state. And that's what drives Nancy, and that's what drives myself to do what we do, to appear in coffee place after coffee place, or restaurant after restaurant, or Democratic Town Committee, or Senior Center where we were earlier today, or meeting with business leaders as we do on a regular basis. It is time for Connecticut to solidly break with its most recent past. Now, we will run against a guy who will say, well, Democrats are only tax and spend, or Democrats only want to take your money, or Democrats can't run government well. Well, that's all poppycock, because we can do the things that are necessary to grow an economy. Franklin Delano Roosevelt did it. Other great Democratic leaders have done it. Barack Obama is willing to take on the serious challenges of our generation and do it. And the people in this coffee house expect us to do it. So let's get that job done. And I think if it makes sense, I should take some questions or whatever. But I'd be happy to do that. Yes?
Hi, Mr. Malloy. My name is Rachel. I'm with the Connecticut Students for a Just and Stable Future. We're a network of climate activists across the state. And we really believe that Connecticut needs to lead on climate issues, but with the failure of the Senate to pass a climate bill this summer. We're going to be proposing a bill in the Connecticut legislature to commit Connecticut to reducing its emissions from electricity 100% by 2020, switching entirely to renewable energies. And we're wondering if we would have your support for that project.
Wow. You know, it's a wonderful idea, and you will have to send me a document that shows that that's actually feasible to do it by 2020, because I'm having a hard time. You know, I've labored on behalf of the issue of climate change since 1998, when a friend of mine, Al Gore, asked me to go to a conference at Columbia University when they had looked at the roster of people who were attending and realized that they hadn't invited any local officials. And from that day forward, and I got to tell you, when I ran for mayor, I was not initially I was not a climate person. Just really, you know, I knew that there was the science, and I knew people were talking about it, but I wasn't talking about it. I came back a very changed person, and so I led the drive to reduce electric consumption in Stamford successfully, to replace many of our old systems, to lower our carbon footprint. Clean Air, Cool Planet honored us, I think 6 years ago, as the only municipality they honored that year because of the efforts that we had undertaken. 2020, zero emissions. If you can show me a roadmap how to get there, I will strongly consider it. But what I will also tell you is that you will not have a governor more activist. If you look at danmalloy.com, Nancy and I have an environmental piece up there that talks about our need to lead in conservation. In addition, by the way, we are a relatively conservative state when it comes to the use of electricity, but we need to lower our usage by 15%. In large part, I make that argument on economic grounds, because we're paying the 76% premium. What we're effectively doing is paying for access to electricity for about, in a normal year, about 20 days of peak period, 5 in the winter and 15 in the summer. This year is a little different. I want to lead the drive to lower that. I certainly want to lead the drive to lower the carbon footprint of the entire state, and I want to work with you on something that I believe I can get behind when I believe I can get behind it.
That's wonderful. We'll show you.